Let's talk about the story Peru tells the world. It's a story of majestic Incan ruins and pristine Spanish colonial plazas. It's a beautiful story. It's also a lie of omission. This is the story Peru tries to forget. The story of the people who built the rhythm but got no credits on the song. Sound like a Drake sweatshop. Look, you hear the cajón, but not the black hands that created it from the boxes of their oppression. You see the marinara dance, but not the African roots it tries to hide. So, what happens to a country that tries to delete its own foundation? The same thing that happens to any building on a stolen foundation. It starts to crack. This isn't just about what happened to the black people of Peru. This is also about what happened to Peru itself. Our first clue is in the math. The Peruvian government will give you a number from their 2017 census, roughly 830,000 Afro-Peruvians. That's about 4% of the population. Neat, tidy, and a statistical miracle. Because historians and activists will tell you the real number is closer to 3 to 4 million people. Nearly 10% of the country. So, where did over 2 million Peruvians of African descent just disappear to? This isn't a counting error. This is the legacy of blanqueamiento. Whitening. For over a century, it was official policy. Encourage European immigration to improve the race. The goal was to make the nation whiter, but how do you measure your success? The census. If you can convince people with African ancestry to not identify as black, you statistically whiten your population. You replace black with mixed, and then you celebrate your mestizo nation as proof racism is over. The census isn't a mirror reflecting reality. It's a report card for a century of racial engineering. Those 2 million missing people aren't a mistake. They're the intended result. To understand Peru, we have to go back to the original machine. Spain colonized Peru and built an industrial-grade extraction engine. Its purpose was singular, to pull every ounce of silver, sugar, and cotton out of the ground and ship it to Europe. The fuel for this machine was human misery. They used the indigenous meter system, a death sentence that worked people to death in the silver mines of Potosi. And when that wasn't enough, starting in 1527, they began importing enslaved Africans. Ultimately, nearly 100,000 people to work the coastal plantations. This machine was never designed to build a society. It was designed to drain one. And for it to run smoothly, it needed a manual. That manual was a racial hierarchy, the Sistema de Castas, with Spaniards at the top and Africans and indigenous people legally at the bottom. The machine's original code was simple. Extract wealth and erase the humanity of the people you're extracting it from. That code was never deleted, but it definitely got updated. So, what happens when the machine's human fuel starts thinking for itself? By the 1700s in the heart of Lima, that's exactly what was happening. We're not talking about enslaved laborers. We're talking about a thriving, free black population. They were the carpenters, the tailors, the blacksmiths, the artists. They were the skilled middle class that kept the colonial capital running. They were building wealth, community, and influence right under the Spanish crown's nose. And the crown looked down from his balcony, saw black success, and had a collective, bureaucratic panic attack. This was a system failure to them. The hierarchy was designed for subjugation, not for black artisans to own shops and compete with white merchants. They were winning at Spain's own game, and Spain's response wasn't to compete. It was to change the rules permanently. So, in the 18th century, the Spanish crown issued its solution, a series of laws, and it is the smoking gun. This was racism by spreadsheet, bureaucratic annihilation. The mandate systematically banned free black citizens from the very trades they had mastered. It banned them from universities, from holding public office, from any path to upward mobility. The message was as clear as it was cruel. We don't mind you being here, we just mind you being anybody that's successful. This was the legal framework for erasure. The extraction machine's first phase was physical exploitation. Its second phase was social and economic strangulation. They saw black prosperity as a virus, and the mandate was the antivirus software. But the machine had one even more insidious tool in its arsenal. The mandate tried to erase them from society. The next phase would try to erase them from history itself. So, the stage was set for revolution, and when the fight for Peruvian independence began in the early 1800s, the liberators needed soldiers. Now, who did they recruit? It's a familiar story. They went straight to the plantations and promised freedom to enslaved black people in exchange for their service. General Jose de San Martin himself declared in 1821 that the children of enslaved mothers would be free upon birth. It was a military strategy wrapped in a moral promise. Black soldiers fought and died for a country that wasn't yet theirs, believing it would be. And here comes the betrayal. After the war was won, the new Peruvian government actively slammed the door. Slavery wasn't fully abolished until 1854, a full 33 years after San Martin's decree. And even then, the freedom they offered was a sham. The government paid compensation to the slave owners for the property they lost. The newly freed black Peruvians, they got nothing, no land, no capital, no reparations for centuries of stolen labor. They were free in a society that had just spent over a century legally ensuring that they had no path to prosperity. It was freedom with an asterisk, a footnote that read, "You are now free to be poor and landless." The machine had been updated. The management was now Creole, not Spanish, but the fuel was still the same. But the physical betrayal was only half of the story. The new Peru needed a new national identity. And to build it, they decided to steal one. Take the cajón. Enslaved Africans, forbidden from having drums, created rhythm from the very boxes of their oppression. They turned a tool of storage into an instrument of soul. Today, it's a global phenomenon, the sound of flamenco in world music, but how many know it was born in the slave quarters of Peru? Then there's the dance. The zamacueca was a sensual, rhythmic dance with undeniable African roots. But for the new, whiter Peruvian elite, it was a little too black. So they sanitized it. They put the women in pristine dresses, straightened the postures, and rebranded it as the marinera, the national dance. They took the rhythm and cut out the heart. They took the dance and erased the dancer. This is the final brilliant evil of the machine. It doesn't just extract your labor and break its promises. It extracts your culture, bleaches it, and sells it back to you as a national treasure you no longer recognize. It's like America with pop and country and everything else, and rock and roll. It's how you steal a soul, and it's why that 2017 census number is so small. When a country systematically steals your identity, sometimes it works. So here we are in modern Peru. The machine is still running, but now it's wearing a suit. The colonial extraction of silver and sugar has been upgraded to the modern extraction of copper and fish meal, and the same communities are still getting the short end of the stick. This creates a bizarre modern paradox. You have global icons like singer Susana Baca, who became Peru's first black minister of culture in 2011. You have the timeless work of Victoria Santa Cruz, whose poetry can sometimes be a masterclass in black pride. Culturally, black Peruvians are more visible than ever. But open up the economic and political spreadsheets and it's like the mandate never ended. Afro-Peruvians are disproportionately represented in poverty statistics and drastically underrepresented in Congress, boardrooms, and universities. Like, how the fuck are they gonna you won't even let them go to school. The cultural icons are celebrated as exceptions that prove the rule. The rule being that systemic power remains largely white and mestizo. The machine's original code has never been debugged. It just runs on a new operating system called neoliberalism. The faces in the mines and on the fishing boats are still brown and black. The faces in the corporate offices, not so much. But a system designed to make you invisible breeds experts in invisibility. The fight back is being led by a new generation who are hacking the machine's code. Organizations like Lundu, founded by activist and artist Monica Carrillo, are on the front lines. They're systematically dismantling the architecture of erasure. They fight for accurate census data. They sue media companies for racist portrayals. And they teach black pride to Afro-Peruvian youth. They understand that the cultural theft is a war and they're fighting it with art. This is the ultimate answer to the centuries of theft and betrayal. It's not about demanding a seat at the table. Fuck your table. It's about exposing that the table was built with stolen wood on stolen land. It's about taking the cajon back and playing their own rhythm. The most radical thing a black Peruvian can do in a system built on their erasure is to simply, defiantly exist. To say, we are here. We have always been here. And we will write ourselves back into the story of our own nation. Now, you might be tempted to see this as just Peru's problem, a unique national tragedy. But that's exactly what the machine wants you to think. The story of Black Peru is actually the rule, not the exception. It's the same blueprint we've seen from the Congo to Puerto Rico. It's the operating manual for the global South. A colonial power arrives. It designs a system to extract raw resources, be it silver, rubber, or sugar. It imports or subjugates a labor force to power that system. It creates a racial hierarchy to justify the exploitation. And when formal independence comes, the local elites keep the machine running because it benefits them. They call it independence, but the only thing that changed was the flag, the racism, the economic disparity, the political exclusion. Those are the core features. So when you look at Peru's constant political instability, it's boom and bust economies, it's deep social fractures, You're not looking at a country that is broken. You're looking at a country operating exactly as it was designed to 500 years ago. A machine built on a stolen foundation will always be unstable. The fight for Black Peru is not a niche social issue. It is the fight for the soul of the nation itself. You cannot build a stable house on a foundation of theft and lies. The cracks will keep showing up in different forms, generation after generation, until you finally address the root. The story of Black Peru is the story of that root. And until it's told, until that foundation is repaired, Peru and every nation built on the same stolen ground will never truly be free.